Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. Before we get into our featured content for today, I'd like to give a brief background of myself and the podcast in general. I am currently 22 years old. I work in an athletics department at a local university where I'm an assistant in the sports information office. Last December, I graduated from Rowan University, a public university in southern New Jersey. I earned 2 bachelor's degrees there. One was in sports communication and media, the other was in journalism. While I was at Rowan, I kept myself busy with extracurricular activities. One of them was writing for the school newspaper called The Wit. All but 2 articles were devoted to my original NBA column that was called, you guessed it, Diehlman at Halftime. I originally named it Halftime, but one of the editors put my name on it one week, thus Diehlman at Halftime was born. So let's break down a typical episode format for this podcast. A quick disclaimer though. This podcast is not one that only covers the Lakers, Celtics, or the Bucks, for instance. Over the course of the season, we will cover all 30 NBA teams at least once. The format is very similar to what I wrote while I was at the WIT. One thing that'll be different will be the addition of occasional guests. We won't have guests on every episode, but I will bring some on here once in a while to get differing perspectives. The actual guests and when are to be determined. Each episode will start with a general overview of the NBA from the past week. This could be little news stories or a bombshell trade that just happened, like maybe the one the Milwaukee Bucks did a month ago involving Damian Lillard. Then we'll get into our main components of the episode: highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. The highlight section is where we'll look at a team that's doing well. It could be because of a winning streak, players are going crazy in the box score, the team is at the top of their respective conference, or whatever. One week, we might talk about LeBron James and the Lakers doing their thing. The next, we might discuss how the San Antonio Spurs are on a 5-game winning streak. You never know what could happen. The lowlight section is the exact opposite of what I just said about the highlights section. It could be because of a losing streak, players' stats are plummeting in the box score, the team is falling in their respective conference, or whatever. Yes, even teams like the Bucks, Kings, or Nuggets could represent this section for a week. Again, you never know what could happen. After that, we will go into random stat. When I say random stat, I mean random stat. We might talk about how a player is averaging a crap ton of blocks per game lately, or maybe insert player here is averaging insert number of three-pointers per game here. For one article I wrote for my column at Rowan, and this is not a lie, I wrote about how athletes should stop going to barbers to get haircuts. This was in early 2021 when COVID was at its peak. The Kansas City Chiefs almost lost half of their team prior to the Super Bowl because a barber tested positive for the virus. And Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were unable to play in the All-Star game because they had been exposed. Yet basically be prepared for something interesting in this section every week. Then I will be introducing a new section to the Diehlman at Halftime podcast that I did not do while writing for The Wit. This one is called Game of the Week. I'll look at the NBA schedule for the week to find a game that might be worth watching and will briefly break it down. The range for games each week will be from the day I'm recording the episode until the day before the next episode. So for example, if I record an episode on Monday, the range will be from Monday through Sunday. This section could be any team, anytime. Maybe we'll do Pistons-Rockets one week because of Asor and Amen Thompson. Or maybe we'll talk about Damian Lillard's return to Portland. I cannot wait to try this section. Finally, we'll conclude with a small section to wrap things up for the episode. Now that we've explained all of that, let's get started. You know how I just went through this whole dialogue about each episode will feature this and here's the order for each episode? That's mostly true. But there will be a handful of episodes throughout the season that are what we call special editions. And you're in luck because the inaugural episode of Diehlman at Halftime is a special edition. In these episodes, the format will change a bit. Special editions may include, but are not limited to, power rankings predictions, All-Star Weekend, a playoff bracket, and more. Today's episode will cover the power rankings predictions. This means that I will rank each team 1 through 30 on how each stands with one another. For example, if I know that Team A is better than Team B, but not better than Team C, then I would rank them C, A, B. We'll have 3 sections of 10 teams each for rankings. The top section with teams 1 through 10 is called the Elite Teams. The middle section with teams 11 through 20 is called the You're Getting There But Not Quite Teams. The bottom section with teams 21 through 30 is called Code Red, This Is Not a Drill. You'll see what I mean in just a few moments. So let's dive into it. As the 2023 NBA offseason comes to a close, the race to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy will commence. This year presents new challenges and excitement to the league. New faces on new teams, old faces on new teams, and the addition of the in-season tournament that starts on November 3rd. But the biggest question of all, can anyone stop the Denver Nuggets from repeating as champions? This episode is titled, A New Journey Awaits. So who's raising eyebrows at the moment as we begin with a special edition of Diehlman at Halftime? Please note, predictions were made before Tuesday's games. Let's start with the elite teams, teams 1 through 10. And please remember, we are working in a descending order. So my top 10 teams, the Denver Nuggets, Milwaukee Bucks, Phoenix Suns, Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors, Philadelphia 76ers, LA Lakers, Sacramento Kings, LA Clippers, and the Memphis Grizzlies. And here's my reasoning. These 10 teams have shown that they either have a heart of a champion or they are/will be a consistent playoff threat. 3 of the top 5 listed here, Denver, Milwaukee, and Golden State, have won a title in the last 3 seasons. Although the Bucks won the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, the Celtics traded for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. The price was steep as they lost Robert Williams III, Malcolm Brogdon, Grant Williams, and Marcus Smart in numerous trades. By acquiring Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, the Suns are in championship or bust mode. Teams like the 76ers and the Clippers are annual playoff contenders, but injury concerns or repeated shortcomings make me question how truly reliable they are. Sacramento and Memphis, with their young cores, will be contenders for a while. The Grizzlies' top concern, though, will be playing their first 25 games without Ja Morant, who was in hot water last year on Instagram Live. Basically, we'll be seeing plenty of primetime games and playoff matches between these teams. Let's get to the You're Getting There But Not Quite teams. Teams 11 through 20, and remember, we are in descending order. The Miami Heat, Cleveland Cavaliers, New York Knicks, Minnesota Timberwolves, Dallas Mavericks, New Orleans Pelicans, Brooklyn Nets, Atlanta Hawks, Chicago Bulls, and the Utah Jazz. My reasoning. Teams in this section could go either way. Some are in the second tier level of good, while others are just plain mid. Miami and Cleveland will no doubt be back in the Eastern Conference playoff race. I have a hunch that Minnesota will take a jump due to Karl Anthony Towns' return from injury and Anthony Edwards taking another big step in his development. Teams like Dallas, New Orleans, and Chicago would be higher on the list if it weren't for their questionable consistency. We saw how Kyrie Irving's arrival at last season's trade deadline tanked the Mavericks' playoff hopes. A healthy Zion Williamson will do wonders for the Crescent City. Keyword, healthy, and Lonzo Ball's continued absence will only hurt the Bulls in the long run. I'm just not sure if I can trust them just yet. The two teams here that will be listed under fun to watch but not true contenders yet are Brooklyn and Utah. Will Ben Simmons actually play meaningful minutes? Will Mikal Bridges be an all-star this year? Will Utah overachieve again? I think these questions will be answered quite quickly. Now let's get to Code Red, This Is Not a Drill. Teams 21 through 30. The Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, Toronto Raptors, Indiana Pacers, Portland Trail Blazers, Orlando Magic, Detroit Pistons, San Antonio Spurs, Washington Wizards, and the Charlotte Hornets. My reasoning. Yeah, most of these teams have absolutely no reason to have hope for this season. They are not contenders. The only exceptions are the Rockets and the Thunder. Oklahoma City has a solid core of young players, and Chet Holmgren will be another weapon in the arsenal. With Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks, and Ime Udoka in Houston, the Rockets might be sneaky in grabbing a lower playoff or play-in seed. Everybody else here does not scare anybody. Fans and media are saying that Jordan Poole will be the next James Harden for Washington because he's going to start averaging 25 points per game. But the Wizards won't be averaging a lot of wins, though. Portland got a respectable amount of assets for Damian Lillard. Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton will be exciting to watch in the Pacific Northwest. Even though the NBA is ready to unleash Victor Wembanyama, San Antonio will experience growing pains just like everyone else. Washington and Charlotte fans, you guys might want to begin scouting reports on college players. It'll probably be more entertaining than watching the Wizards and the Hornets. And away we go. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I promise that next week will be the introduction of our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. If you have not already, make sure to follow me and the podcast accounts on social media. I have 2 Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA. That is @DIEHLMAN_NBA. And that is for both Twitter and Instagram. My personal Twitter account is @LarryDiehlman18. That is LarryDiehlman18. And my personal Instagram account is @MrSports18. That is @MR_SPORTS18. They're also in the description on SoundCloud. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.